Welcome to 7th grade World Studies. The goal for this lesson was to answer the topic question, which city-state is more superior, Sparta or Athens? I began our lesson by having students write down what they already know about ancient Greece. They did this by creating a brainstorm map. Anticipatory set statements would also serve as a means to get them thinking about their personal values, ideas, and beliefs so they could later connect this with their learning of the culture and customs of each Greek city-state. They would later be able to see how these statements connect with Sparta's militaristic and frugal lifestyle with that of Athens' focus on the arts and trade. The purpose for both introductory activities was to connect students' prior knowledge with their learning of the new content. This goes along with the cognitive perspective theory that says how it's important to focus on making connections to prior experiences. Doing so allows students to build onto knowledge they already have to make their learning more meaningful. After completing the anticipatory portion of the lesson, it was time to begin answering our target question, which would be assessed through a debate that students would take part in toward the end of the lesson. To prepare them, students would take part in several scaffolded activities. Therefore, the twist of this lesson is that I would be using a variety of instructional strategies to aid their learning. First, students got to choose which city-state they preferred to defend, Sparta or Athens. Then they were placed into small groups that were selected by myself so that stronger students could support the students who needed more assistance with the skills being taught. This practice applies to the behaviorist perspective approach that the use of peers can serve as effective models for students to demonstrate good habits. Working in groups would give students the opportunity to more actively engage with the content. As the cognitive theory also says, making learning active provides students with more perceptual information from which they can form strong memories, allowing them to reperceive the activity more effectively. Ultimately, this was the goal for placing students in smaller groups. To help with their research on their assigned city-state, students used materials that I provided them. These included printed materials from online articles and magazines. In addition, students were supplemented with graphic organizers to help them record and organize their research so that they had more of a purpose for their reading. They were also given an essay outline that would help them transfer their notes in order to construct cohesive speeches for their debates. Both of these intervention support techniques fit the cognitive perspective that it's best to allow students to focus only on the necessary information that meets the purpose of the lesson. To help with their rebuttals, I modeled for them how to do so. I did this by sharing my thinking with my students. My modeling of the skill went something like this. Alright students, so right now I'm going to pretend that I'm thinking on the Athenian side. From my research, I can tell that one thing the other side, Sparta, will claim is that our military is weak. Therefore, what I need to do first is look back at my strengths and weaknesses chart so that I can find possible strengths for our military so that I can rebuttal their argument. I can see here in my notes that Athens does have a very strong navy. We also have more allies that control the Aegean Sea. Both would serve us well in battle because it shows that we have military strength when it comes to the sea, and we also have more allies that could support us in war. Now I'm going to write this in my rebuttal sheet. Remember, you're allowed to use this sheet to help you during the debates. After modeling a couple of examples, I then called on students to help me construct rebuttals until eventually they were practicing with their groups. This shows the social perspective theory of sharing the thinking load with the learner in order to model and develop their thinking. After the first couple of examples, I called on students to help me construct rebuttals until eventually they were practicing in their groups. This shows the social perspective theory of sharing the thinking load with the learner in order to model and develop the learner's thinking. Students were once again paired with their partners of varying abilities, which also fits the behaviorist perspective that children can be motivated to imitate high-status models. Such scaffolding would meet these goals. Leading up to the debate, students had the opportunity to practice giving their speech and rebuttals in front of smaller groups consisting of members from their side. Prior to this, students practiced phrases that would help their comments sound motivating and non-judgmental. This time gave students a chance to practice their speeches and also gain feedback from their peers in a constructive way. According to Bandura and the behavioral perspective, providing students with opportunities to master a situation and produce positive outcomes can lead to them building self-efficacy. As mentioned before, the final assessment took place when students performed their debate speeches. During these presentations, students in the audience recorded their rebuttals and had the opportunity to share them after speeches were delivered. This was yet another example of how active learning took place during the lesson. Not only did each presenter need to research and read their speech, but they also had to listen to their peers' rebuttals and respond using their knowledge of the content. Through this, students demonstrated their understanding of the topic without having to take a standardized test at the end. As James Paul G. suggests in his inspiring short documentary on video games and learning, assessment should be placed in the context of the learning. We should therefore trust this process. My personal goal for this lesson was to strive and follow this theory.